Even if you don't recognize the name, you've seen Robert Wise's movies. If you've enjoyed the musicals West Side Story or The Sound of Music, that's the work of Robert Wise. Robert Wise is the subject of our January film series here at the Kansas City Public Library. We're calling it Robert Wise, Hollywood Journeyman. He wasn't a director who let his personality come through in all his movies. Rather, he was an extremely efficient craftsman who could take almost any subject matter or any genre and make a really good movie about it. Robert Wise started out not as a director but as a sound editor at RKO Pictures. And then in 1940, a fellow named Orson Welles asked him to edit his first film. And that's how Robert Wise became the film editor of Citizen Kane. We start our series on January 2nd with The Day the Earth Stood Still, a fantastic sci-fi picture from 1951. There was a remake a few years ago, but take my advice and don't mess with that one. This is the real deal. Robert Wise's direction is fantastic, and the film is wonderful because it's more than just a science fiction movie about a flying saucer that lands in Washington, D.C. Michael Rennie plays Klaatu, a man from another world who's come here to tell human beings to get their act together when it comes to nuclear weapons. Taking the guise of a Mr. Carpenter, he decides to walk among us living like a human being. And if you sense a Christian allegory there, you're absolutely right. Mr. Carpenter is a Christ figure, and in fact the film ends with his resurrection. A lot of things go together here. Religion, politics, the Cold War, fear of nuclear weapons. It just turns out to be a fantastic film. Interestingly enough, on the 30th, we're going to have a science fiction film that Robert Wise directed 20 years later. It's 1971's The Andromeda Strain, a fantastic thriller about a group of scientists who are yanked from their normal lives by a government agency and put in an underground laboratory. It seems that a returning rocket ship has brought some sort of alien virus to Earth, and it's fatal to humans. And these scientists have only a few hours to figure out how to save mankind. Actors loved working with Robert Wise, and it's easy to see why. So many of them got Oscar nominations or even wins under him. On January 7th, we present Somebody Up There Likes Me, a film about the early life of middleweight fighter Rocky Graziano. It stars a skinny young actor named Paul Newman, and it turned him into an overnight star. Up to that point, Newman had only made one movie, the rather wretched Silver Chalice. His career was going nowhere, but under Wise's direction, he was headed for stardom. I Want to Live, directed by Wise in 1958, earned an Oscar for Susan Hayward. She played Barbara Graham, a California party girl, drug addict, part-time prostitute, who was convicted of killing a woman in a robbery. Now, people still debate whether Barbara Graham really did it or not. But what you'll find in this film is an almost unbearably detailed examination of what goes on leading up to an execution. Watch this and you'll know why Susan Hayward won that Oscar. And then there's Steve McQueen. On January 28th, we're going to show The Sand Pebbles, the Robert Wise directed film based on the bestseller about a group of U.S. sailors on a gunboat in China's Yangtze River in the 1920s. McQueen plays Jake Holman, a mechanic and sailor who loves engines more than he loves people. But slowly his world opens up, he befriends a Chinese mechanic, and before you know it, you have a classic. It was undoubtedly the best acting job of Steve McQueen's career, and he had the nomination to prove it. Robert Wise was good in almost any genre. For instance, romantic comedy. He didn't do a lot of them, but in 1962 he did a great one, which we're going to be showing on January 9th. It's called Two for the Seesaw, and in it, an Omaha lawyer who's just been divorced ends up in a Greenwich Village apartment where he meets a bohemian dancer. The two characters are played by Robert Mitchum and Shirley MacLaine. It's sort of a bittersweet romance, but satisfying. Wise even did a Western. Actually, he did several. Tribute to a Bad Man from 1956, which we're showing on the 19th, stars James Cagney, yeah, the gangster actor, as a rancher out in Wyoming. He's 200 miles from the nearest law, he's running a big spread, and he deals with rustlers by taking the law into his own hands. This is a good example of the sort of psychological Western that was really popular in the 50s. They weren't kiddie shows, they were about real issues and serious themes. And, by the way, it's drop dead gorgeous with widescreen color photography. And in 1959's Odds Against Tomorrow, which we're showing on the 21st, Wise took a chance on film noir. Now, film noir, of course, were black and white movies, usually about crime. They were usually kind of depressing. Well, in this one, he stars Harry Belafonte as a gambling addict who takes a job robbing a payroll in upstate New York. The problem? Well, one of his partners in crime, played by Robert Ryan, is a raging racist. This film was a terrific heist movie, very dark, very grim, but with great actors, and it was shot on the streets of New York, and it looks fantastic. So please join us here in the Stanley H. Durwood Film Vault in January for Robert Wise' Hollywood Journeyman. The Day the Earth Stood Still, January 2nd. Somebody Up There Likes Me, January 7th. Two for the Seesaw, January 9th. Tribute to a Bad Man, January 14th. Odds Against Tomorrow, January 21st. I Want to Live, January 23rd. The Sand Pebbles, January 28th, and The Andromeda Strain, January 30th. Remember, it's free right here at the Kansas City Public Library, Central Library, 14 West 10th Street. Be sure to check the film blog at the Kansas City Library's website at kclibrary.org. And also, check out what I have to say about the most recent releases at my site, butlerscinemascene.com.